Okay, today we have something quite special, bit of a treat for me actually, so hopefully it will be for you. We're going to be checking out the bike that was raced in Tokyo by Mathieu Van Der Poel. Now, one of our Japanese team working for GCN actually spotted the bike when they were doing some stuff with Canyon and got these amazing shots. I mean, just look at that beautiful finish on there, almost like an anime paint job on there. Absolutely gorgeous. So let's have a little dive in and have a look at the spec on this amazing looking race bike. Okay, so as we know, Mathieu Van Der Poel is racing for Canyon. We also know he's quite a tall rider. Now, I would have put money on him picking a size XL frame based on his height, but he actually tends to ride a size large. Now, I can't confirm that looking at this bike, but his previous race bikes have been a size large. I can only assume for trying to get the stack height and get everything down super low on the bike, as we've seen with Sam Gaze and some of the other taller XCO racers out there. No doubt it makes the bike fractionally smaller, fractionally lighter, arguably, and of course enables them to get a similar position that they might want to have on other bikes like cross bikes or road bikes. Inverted stem, almost like negative rise, super long front end on there, with that sort of handling attributes you would see with actually more old school cross-country bikes, but man, they tend to ride them really well. So let's dive into the frame first. Now, as you can see, this one is a custom frame. It looks to be a size large Canyon Lux, which runs 100mm travel using a single pivot with a linkage to drive that shock. Now, it's actually an incredibly active suspension design, and it uses a flex between the chainstay and the seat stay, much in a way that you would have a pivot there, but of course without the weight penalties of the hardware itself. So using a flex in the frame there. Very supple. It's a Fox DPS shock on there, Kashima coated, and it's using a remote lockout on there. And I've got the same setup on my Canyon Lux, and the remote lockout on there is amazing. It also actuates the lockout on the fork. So you really can, for those punchy sections for putting the power down, you really can get the bike engaged into a firm setting exactly like you would need. Now, geometry based on this frame, it does differ because some people choose to run 110mm travel on the front and some choose to run 100. Now, I'm going to say that he's running 100 here, speculating, but he's running a Fox 34 on the front, so we'll get to that in a minute. So that is making me suspect that he might choose to run 110 occasionally. So based on a regular 100mm travel on the front, it has a 70-degree head angle, 624mm top tube. This is speculating it's a size large, 505mm seat tube, so quite tall, quite a lofty bike there. 74.5-degree seat angles, that's pretty common on the cross-country bikes. 450 reach, which might sound tiny to a lot of you out there. Sounds tiny to me. Even a 480 reach of the extra large sounds tiny, to be fair. And the chainstays are 435mm there, so fairly common. Nice punchy length, not too short, not too long. Works kind of good for him. But the interesting thing here is the fact it's got a Fox 34 Stepcast fork on there. Now, the bike I'm riding currently was last year's Van Der Poel signature colorway and signature spec on there. And it came with a Fox 32 at 132 Stepcast and 100mm travel. Now, the fork felt incredible, really good damper on there. There's no real reason to change it, other than the fact I wanted the front end of the bike a little bit higher, just to sit up higher, not necessarily have that much more travel. And I didn't want to ram the fork full of volume spacers or run less sag. I liked the way it felt being active, so that's why I went for 110. But an added benefit, the Fox 34 no doubt is a little bit stiffer, a slightly bigger fork there. So it does make me wonder what Van Der Poel's been looking for in the 34 on his bikes, because previously he's gone for the lightest option out there. But both excellent forks, obviously just offering slightly different ride attributes there. And of course the travel. The 32 can only go up to 100, whereas the 34 can go up to 120mm travel. So it does offer a bit more for other riders on different style frames. Now, we don't know everything about his suspension setup. He has been known to run around 75 psi in the fork and 110 psi in the rear shock on previous race setups, or so we've read. Can't comment on that because we haven't spoken to him. These images, I love this because it's like a sneak peek. This is just stuff that we've been sent from our awesome Japanese team over at GCN. Okay, onto the cockpit then, and the front of the bike, it looks neat and tidy. Now, it's got the Canyon CP 0008 one-piece bar and stem on there. Super nice, super light, lovely angle on there. Not quite wide enough for me, but it seems to be perfect for Mathieu Van Der Poel. So it's a 720mm bar, and the stem on here appears to be 110mm with a -22 or a -22 negative rise stem on there. So seriously low front end there. And also, if you look close up, you'll see he's missing the Canyon top caps. Now, Canyon have their knock block style setup on the top tube there to protect the top tube from damage from the controls, and it has these special shaped profiled headset spacers. His is missing them. Look up close here and you'll see there hasn't even got cover over the top bearing there. It's almost exposed. Everything possible to slam that front end on the bike. So I think it definitely is the size large because of that. The fact they're trying to get the front end as low as possible. So the head tube on mine is quite a lot taller. Now that's fine by me because I'm no XC racer. I want mine to feel a bit more like a trail bike. But super nice to see. Although we must say, if you've got a Canyon Lux, you really shouldn't be taking that stuff off, because all it's going to take is one crash, one over the bars, dare I say that, and you could be taking big lumps of carbon out your top tube from your controls. So it is really for a team rider effect only, or if you just don't care about your bike. So on the handlebars, he's running XTR race levers, Shimano of course, with those carbon lever blades on them. Super nice. Some riders actually reported to not like the blades on them, to prefer the alloy blades that you get on the other models, but if I was offered a choice, I'd probably go for him, because they'd weigh absolutely nothing. The gear lever on there is a Shimano XTR, and he doesn't choose to run a dropper post. This is something that's becoming stranger, I think, in the world of XCO racing, because most riders are choosing to run droppers, but where absolutely necessary, these racers are clearly good enough to not have to use them. No negativity towards his unlucky crash though, because that was really unlucky and not nice to see, to be fair, considering the fact that he was more than likely to get a podium at that race. So poor guy must be gutted, and you cannot deny what an incredible racer he is. Whatever format it is, mountain biking, on the road bike, in the Tour, like wearing a yellow jersey, like just unbelievable. One of the greatest of all time for sure. I'm really sorry that he didn't get to compete as aggressively as he wanted to. So there is a suspension lockout lever on the bars, and it actuates both the fork and the rear shock there. Super simple, one button to lock and one button to unlock, and that actuates both of them together. Really cool thing. Now the grips are the ESI foam grips on there. We're seeing these on a lot of XC racers bikes. Some people say it's because they're super light. Some say it's really comfortable because they're very thin and they've got a lot of comfort to them, whereas lock-on style grips have a little less comfort because they've got a thinner amount of padding, so they've got a plastic sleeve of which the padding sits on. And you could also argue that foam grips are going to have more grip, more traction on them when they're wet, which means great if you ride barehanded. Sometimes you get sweaty hands, you can slide on rubber grips. But also, let's face it, cross-country racers exposed to really bad conditions could be really muddy, they could fall off, get dirty gloves. It's going to give a bit more traction on the bars. And just note the scuffs on the bar end cap there. That's probably a result of that crash that knocked him out of the race. Unlucky, Mr. Van Der Poel. Okay, so onto the rolling stock, the wheels of the bike. Now, on a cross-country race, on a cross-country bike, it's important to have lightweight wheels because they're the things that you are rotating. On a cross-country race bike, it's absolutely essential to have these as light as possible. You don't want to be carrying any excess baggage. So on screen, you can see a bunch of close-up shots here, and there's some interesting things going on. So things to observe, you've got Shimano XTR hubs, but they're laced up to Duke carbon rims. Now I can't quite tell the exact model because they've got a couple, they've got the race only ones which are a bit narrow, but I suspect these ones, because if you look closely, and I'm just looking at the shot here, you can see the ETRTO, so it's international rim, basically dimension sizing. It says here 25.6, so they, on the Duke website, which I'm also looking at here, they're available with 25.6, 28 and 30mm internal sizing. So it appears he's running the 25.6. Also, something very interesting, if you look up close on these, is on the rear spokes, where the spokes actually cross over. I can't tell if they're soldered or if they're just metal wrapped to hold them in place to basically get a bit more structure and rigidity on the back end. He hasn't got it on the front, so it suggests that the front has a bit more compliance than the rear. I mean, let's face it, Mathieu Van Der Poel can put down some serious power. And if you're running a super lightweight wheel set, you are going to get some sort of flex. If you think of the torque that goes in for those big cassettes, so this is a really cool little thing we've seen. Now, we have seen previously people having spokes soldered together. It used to be quite a common thing in an attempt to make your wheels stiffer and stronger, but I've never seen it clearly focused around being able to get the horsepower down, because that looks exactly what he has done here. Again, not on the front, only on the rear of the bike here, and hopefully you can make it out. It just looks like a little silver metal wrap around that spoke there, so it could well be soldered in place. Or it could be wire twisted on tight and then snipped off neatly. Tyres on there are Maxxis Aspen. Now these are a little bit different, so they're obviously 29-inch tyres, they're 2.4, the EXO protection on them, but also if you look on the casing it says 170. Now you might not be aware of this, but tyre casing comes in various different TPIs, so that's threads per inch. 120 TPI is common for a cross-country tyre, it's very supple. So downhill tyre, for example, might be 60 TPI. So it won't necessarily mean you have gaps between the threads on that tyre carcass, it just means the threads are much bigger. The bigger threads they are, the tougher the tyre is, the more support that tyre is. The thinner they are, the more of them you have to have the tyre like that. So 120 TPI is commonplace. These are 170 TPI, and it's said that they are race only because they are so thin and supple across the ground. Probably means you can run slightly heavier tyre pressures because the casing can deform that much more than the 120s. I'd really like to see a set of 170 TPI cross-country tyres in the flesh just to have a feel myself. I've got 120s on mine. I certainly wouldn't need anything less or more than that, but definitely like to see that. Something to say about the 60 TPI. So some people think that's for cheap bikes only because it's cheaper to make them with thicker threads. Not necessarily so. Like I said, downhill tyres and some enduro tyres even will be like that if they're running thicker, heavier duty casing on them. So don't knock it, it's just not for cross country because they're going to be thicker and heavier. Also, the valves on here, more speculation. They look like they might be non-tubeless. It could just be running a regular screw on there rather than the O-ring under it, but they look to me like they might not be tubeless, which I'd find unusual. I guess the only reason possibly might be running some of those thermoplastic style inner tubes. Something like Tubolito, there's a few different options available on the market as far as I know now, but Tubolito were the first ones. Incredibly lightweight and very tough as well, but very expensive, so not for everyone, but they might be for a racer like him. Brake rotors are Shimano Tech on there, centre lock mounts, typically 160s front and rear for cross country races, although some are as small as 140s. I can't actually guess that from here. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say the 160s because that feels about right, and he's a tall guy. Technical riding course, you need a bit of braking power there, but they could well be 140s in the name of saving a bit of weight. And the calipers, of course, are Shimano XTR 2-piston, the race calipers. Of course, there's no way on a cross-country race bike you're going to want to have big, heavy-duty 4-piston brakes on there. And also, have a look up close on the rear sort of non-drive side skewer. So where the skewer goes into the frame there, quick release skewer, but you actually see some scuffs on there, so that's probably another telltale sign from that crash. Let's face it, he's not the sort of guy that's going to spend a lot of time on the deck because of the way that he rides. He's a really clean rider, so I reckon that scuff is from that Olympic crash. Right, now moving on to the transmission. Bear with me because I'm kind of looking through the same images that you're seeing. So it looks like the cassette on the back is the 1051 XTR cassette, so the 510% range there. Rear Mech XTR, chain I'm guessing is XTR, could be dual race, but it's XTR no doubt. The cranks on there XTR, I can't see the length on there. I'd find it strange if someone as tall as him was running anything less than 175s. But I'd like to know if anyone knows what crank length Mathieu Van Der Poel runs on his mountain bikes. Let us know in the comments. Always good to know these little geek stats. The chain ring, can't confirm this either. The bike itself, when you buy these, come with a 34 on them. I've seen him with a 38 on there before, but we've also seen bike checks with him before running a 40 tooth with a power meter on there. 40 tooth, that's massive. I think how fast you can go if you've got like pistons like his. So don't know, but I'd probably speculate this looks about a 38 to me. But again, can't tell. Pedals are XTR Race. I couldn't tell the Q factor on those because you can get them with different axle lengths. They may well be a narrow Q factor to reflect his setup on his race bike as well there. And we don't know the weight either, but the bike does look absolutely gorgeous. It's really nice to have this footage sent across. I feel quite privileged actually to see this stuff up close because, well, let's face it, events like that one at Tokyo were pretty special. Now, what do you think of Mathieu Van Der Poel's bike? Do you like it as much as I like it? I mean, I love this stuff. I love, even more so, the fact I wasn't there to check it out. I've been sent a bunch of images and they're like, hey, do you want these for a video? Yeah, of course I do. So I've been studying them, just trying to work out what's on the bike there. If I've missed anything, let us know in those comments underneath there. And well, we'll see you in the next video. Ta-ra.